8 years now, okay, and I'm Cisa certified. Okay, because I also planning to also get as well. So aside from being a certified Cisa, also if you are accountant, okay, and I also have certifications in ISO 27001, legal and enter. Okay, so I've been doing it for the past 8 years now. All right. So today I will be looking at the domain 4 of the visa part. All right. So domain 4 speaks to address. All right. My sound is just a minute. Okay. So is it better now? I was seeing a comment from Gona. All right. Thank you. All right. So I was saying we'll be looking at the domain 4 business resilience. All right. So one thing I normally say when it comes to CISA or IT audit is that understanding matters a lot. Okay, just for as long as you can clear any concept and be able to break it down, interpret it into your own language, then that question that will be brought on your screen is just a piece of cake that you can kill. As long as you understand what the concept is saying and then you know how to apply it practically. Okay. Which is why we are here to help you achieve that. Okay. Okay, so very quickly, let me share my screen. Okay, so okay, so can anybody confirm that I can see my screen? Hello, can anybody confirm that I can see my screen?
Yes, we can, sir. And it's on presentation mode.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Okay, yeah. So we'll be looking at domain 4. So for domain 4, we have two parts. Okay, so yeah. This is the part B for domain 4, which is the business resilience. So we have the information systems operations, okay, and then the business resilience. Okay, so the fourth part of domain 4 speaks to the different system operations you have in the environment. Okay, which speaks to your different devices, your applications, your servers. All right, so that's not the focus today. And then those applications and servers that we have, how resilient are they? All right, so that's what the part B is now speaking to. Okay, so we are saying that in as much as you have your applications working perfectly, all right, then what is part B now saying? Part B is saying that how resilient are those applications. So when we say resilient, it just means that can it stand the test of time? Okay, so that's what the part B is looking at. Okay, so and under the part B we intend to look at three major areas under the part B. Okay, it's a broad area, but we have it broken down in the subsequent slide, which I believe this should have also been shared with you. Okay, so we have business continuity and disaster recovery. We have the backup and failover testing, and of course we have the incident management. Okay, so to start with, um, let's look at what is business resilience. Um, Let me give a quick example to this. For instance, so many of us, when you are being asked that why are you using two SIM cards? So some of us will say, so I have MTN and Airtel because when my MTN goes down, my Airtel will always be there for me. So and some of us have even experienced some of these issues whereby you will see that MTN is having they're having their maintenance, whatever, and then you now decide to switch over to it and say, thank God, yeah, I'm not affected. I already have one other network, okay. So same thing also happens in our offices. Okay. So sometimes you might be connected to the internet, so you are doing something on one of your applications in the office, and then you just discover that the internet is down. Okay. So when internet is down, what then happens? Does your IT have another internet service provider that can replicate, that can come in those instances? All right. So if I'm working on one application, okay, and then my the application goes down due to internet service provider, can we switch over to another internet service provider so that our work can continue very well? Okay, so that is just the simple definition of business resilience. Okay, before we come into the technical terms of business resilience. So just as it happens in our everyday life, okay, let's just say it's something called you have a plan B. All right. So when plan A fails, what is your plan B? Okay, so that is just the simple terms and definition of business resilience. Okay, so but according to Cisa, it says that it is an ability, all right, to adapt to disruptions and incidents to maintain continuous operations and protect its assets. Okay, so let's dissect this. It says um, it's an ability to adapt to disruptions. All right, adapt. Take note of that word adapt. It says it means that even in the terms of when you have a downtime, can your business adapt? Okay, can your business adapt to disruption? All right, it's not saying that disruption will not come. You have disruption. All right. So when the disruption come, can you adapt? All right, and to now continue to maintain operations and also protect your assets. All right. So how do you now adapt in business resilience? Adaptation now means that you look at what you have in the organization, all right, and say, what backup can I put in place? Okay. So for instance, you are using, let's say you are using MTN also, and then your MTN is always going down. Okay, now say, okay. So we have other options. We have Excel, we have Flow, we have a Salad and the like. Okay. So out of these other three options, which one can I actually make use of? Okay. So when the MTN goes down, you switch over to either of the ones you're speaking. You've chosen right. So that's the ability to choose any other one with your adaptation mode. Okay. That means even when the disruption comes, you are able to adapt. All right. Then how do you now maintain continuous operation to protect the assets? Just by you switching to another another network, it means that you are continuing your operation. Okay. Let's say for example, just as we're having this meeting now, I'm using MTN, and then once the MTN goes down, doesn't mean I cannot switch to another one. No, I need to switch to another one just for the meeting to continue. All right. And then how do an organization now protect its assets? Okay. So you have different you have different um, applications in the environment. Okay, one of your system goes down. Okay, if you are not careful enough to switch over, or you just want to continue using that, because it is because sometimes when you don't have a backup, you want to let me continue managing the one I have. All right, and if you continue managing it, you are only doing what you're only damaging the that asset the more. But because you have a backup plan, all right, so you're able to let that asset go by and then you do a switch over, pending when you have probably a better solution to that to one of that. So aside from helping you adapt and continue operation, business experience also helps you to do to protect your assets. Okay. So now in the face of so I don't know how this works. If there are probably questions, I don't know. Rachel, I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know how it works. If there are probably questions, or if that will be done after the class, I don't know. If there are questions, we can probably indicate so that be treating them along while we're having this discussion. Okay. So okay, so just like I was saying, we have other areas that embodies business resilience. Okay, so we have something called the business continuity plan. Okay, we have something called the business impact analysis. Okay, we have something called the disaster recovery plan. We have something called the governance and management oversight. So all of these are embedded into business resilience. So why are they embedded? The question is, why are they embedded into business resilience? Okay. So you know, I was saying that you cannot just wake up one day and just say, with this my application, I want to just go and bring in a backup for it. Okay. I cannot just wake up one day and just say, I want to switch over from MCN to Blue. Because I must have done my research before I say I want to switch over to Blue, or before I say I want to use Blue as my backup plan. Maybe from ESC, people have told me that, oh, guy, Blue is the best. All right, Ether is the best, or whatever. Okay, so based on that, I can say, okay, I want to switch over. Or it has happened to most of us that sometimes probably when you relocate to a new environment, I tell you that, oh, where you are, MTN is not good though, Ether is the best part of it. Okay, so you want to just have that as a backup plan, so in case your major telecoms actually messes up. Okay, so that's what we are saying, that you don't just jump into saying, oh, I want to build a resilient mode for my organization. What are those things that you need to ensure that you put in place? Okay, and first of it is the business impact analysis. Okay, so when we talk about business impact analysis, uh, what does it say? Okay, so according to the STAR, it says that it evaluates a BIA. Okay, so don't mind me if I'm using some of the shortened ones. Okay, which I believe you also start using in due time. So when we say business impact analysis, we mean BIA. So and what does BIA mean? Okay, BIA just simply means that I'm evaluating the critical processes, okay, and IT components supporting them, and I am determining time frame, priorities, resources, and then interdependencies. Okay, so let me say it again. We're evaluating the critical processes. Okay, so when I say critical processes, I'm saying that we all have different applications in our environment. I believe you know so, because in your environment, when I ask you what is your core business application, some of us will say we use core banking application, but aside from core banking, you probably have some other applications that use maybe seamless HR, maybe an application that runs your checks, okay, or some application that runs your what's it called, that runs your foreign exchange services, okay. So you know now that you cannot compare an application that runs your foreign exchange services to a core banking application. So now when we now say critical, we are talking of those critical applications, okay, that support the business. All right. So and those IT components supporting them. Okay. So in the chain of a business environment, okay. So when we speak to processes, all right, and when we speak to processes and applications, all right, it speaks to what are those main processes, all right. So your main processes um can be receiving of deposits. Let's use a banking environment for an example. Your main process can be receiving of customers deposits, okay, and withdrawals, okay, which is managed by your core banking application. So your process is receiving, withdrawing of customers deposits, and that application that is helping you to do that. So you know that when you come in as a customer to a bank, the teller actually collect cash and then enters it into a particular application. That application is mostly called a core banking application. So the process and the application. All right, I hope that's understood. Okay. So now, what are those interdependencies supporting them? So now in IT, we are looking at an application from the front view to say this is an application, okay? But at the back end, there are some interdependencies that are supporting them, okay? We look at the server, okay? We look at the database, okay? We look at the network devices, which are now further broken into different areas, okay? But those are not the focus of today, okay? So when we say the interdependence, we are looking at what are those backend infrastructure that support that application that you are using in your bank or in your company, okay? So for example, when I say the server is just a device that supports the application. It fits the application. So the interdependency means that if the server goes down today, that application that you are using in the content becomes irrelevant. You can no longer make use of it. Okay. Similarly, if your database goes down, so your database is just from a name data, okay, it stores critical information of that your core banking application. Okay. So if I want to pull anything from your core banking application, if I don't want to come to your front end, when I say front end, I mean from the normal interface that you are seeing, okay, download me the list of customers that are withdrawn today. That's your front end. From the back end, I'm going to your SQL database to now go and pull. So if anything happens to that database today, where your data is stored, it means that you can no longer continue operating optimally. Okay. Similarly, your network devices as well. Your network device, I said they're further broken down into different areas. Okay. So network devices is that network that enables you to connect to the application. It also enables your external customers to connect to your application. For instance, you have the likes of different banks, you have First Bank, GT Bank, and the like. You as an external customer, you can connect to GT Bank environment. You can connect your GT app, your First Bank, your Union Bank app, because the network devices are running effectively that can take your request to that server. The network device is running effectively, the server is working effectively, and of course, the database storing those information is working effectively. Okay, so that is why you are able to access that GT Bank application, Union Bank application, or any other banking application. So those are the interdependencies that goes alongside your critical processes. Okay, I hope that is understood. Okay, so now we're not saying that. Okay, so we're not saying that. So how do you now measure your business impact analysis? Okay, so you can see I have 4 broken parts here. Okay, so the first part is identify critical process. Okay, so according to Cisa, Cisa says that one should understand the organization, the key business processes, and then IT resources used by the organization to support the key business operation, which is what I just explained. Okay, to say my major process is withdrawal and deposit. Okay, and what application supports my process? It is a core banking application. Okay, some banks use Finaple, some use Finex, like that. Okay, and what are those interdependencies? I just mentioned the servers, the database, the network devices. All right. So now, having now identified your critical process, so it cannot be one. Okay. For instance, for in a banking environment, your critical processes cannot be one. Okay. So it can be a lot. So your BIA document, so it's actually a document, okay? So you highlight all the critical processes that you have in the organization, okay? It can be withdrawal, it can be payment, okay? It can be of exchange of foreign exchanges, foreign exchange service, okay? You can also have some other businesses that you are operating in the environment as well. Maybe you are also into investment, okay? Maybe you're also into investment, all right? You are probably also into loan services, okay? So And probably for all of those different processes that I'm listing, you have different applications that are supporting those processes. Okay, so in that document, you list out these are my processes. Okay, these are my applications. All right, and these are the various interdependencies that those businesses are operating on. Okay, so I will now say, based on that, I will now rank my processes and say into high, medium, and low. Okay, so why am I ranking it? Okay, so we know we said identify critical process. So why am I ranking it? The reason I'm ranking it is because so that whenever I'm making a decision, I can give priority to those incidents that are high. Okay, so I know that my critical processes, I can always have a backup for it. Okay, whenever they go down, because it's not like if she will not also prioritize the medium and low, but then in an order of priority, I give more prioritization to the what to the high areas. All right. Okay. So now let's talk about determining the recovery time objective. Okay. All right. So for determining your recovery time objectives, or first let's just even say what is um a recovery time objective. So a recovery time objective is saying that this is the minimum downtime, okay, that you can have as a business. So, so remember I stated that you have already highlighted your process into high, medium, and low, okay? And then you want to now determine your recovery time objective, okay? So now, we have said that the recovery time objective is the minimum downtime that your businesses would can allow, okay? So now, for instance, we pick a critical process, okay? So let's look at it practically. I pick a critical process and say payment, okay? Payment to customers. That is one example of a critical. So how then do I now determine my recovery recovery time objective? Okay. Now, to determine my recovery time objective, I need to look at the various transactions that we have. Okay. So let's say we have payments. So how often do we make payments in the organization? Okay. Let's say we make payments in the organization 247, because payments, withdrawals, you have your customers. Don't forget, I'm still using a banking environment for example. Okay. So for payment, for withdrawals, you have your customers that are always coming into your application to withdraw day in, day out, okay, which is the process, all right? So, and then you now know that if your customers are always withdrawing 247, it then means that you cannot allow a time lag for your downtime. So, within the okay, there's something called the CIA triad, okay, in information security. It's also in domain 5. So there's that A part of it. The C is confidentiality, the I is integrity, and A is availability. So the A part of it is availability. That's where you now say I cannot afford this particular process to go down for 1 minute. Okay, because when you look at the way the transaction is going on, your customers are always coming in frequently to come and to withdraw, to do things on your app, to make payments on your app. So you cannot afford any downtime. So that means your recovery time objective becomes 0. All right. So when I say my recovery time objective becomes 0, it therefore means that, so remember I stated that if the system goes down, or remember when we started it, I said that for you to be using probably an MTN network, if your MTN goes down, you want to switch to either Glo or Airtel. The same thing happens in an IT operation. So now that we have determined that my recovery time objective is 0 downtime, It therefore means that whatever whatever interdependency I'm going to be using to replace what I have on ground must always be available all the time. So I cannot afford a downtime. Okay. So this is what you will see organizations doing when you have things like that. So remember I said that you have your servers, you have your server, you have your network device, and then of course you have database that are speaking to that application that you are seeing in the front end. Okay. So what will the organization do? All right. So there's something we call a data center. All right. So a data center is where organizations put their other interdependencies. So you see servers, you see network devices, okay, databases that are also on the servers. All right. So you see them in the data centers. Okay. Now, for an organization that cannot afford a zero downtime, what they do is that they now replicate, okay, that same interdependency, okay, they either replicate it in the same data center, okay, or in another data center, okay. So what are they doing? Okay, what they are doing is that when I say replication just means that once I am doing anything here, okay, it should also be showing at the other hand. Okay, just like can we say copy and paste? This one is more faster than copy and paste now, because once I'm typing here, it's also showing at the other end. Okay, so that is what the application does. Okay, so once a customer is making any transaction here, which will be showing on this server, it will also be showing on server 2. Okay, so server 1 is showing what customer A is doing. Server 2 is also showing what customer A is also doing. Okay. So what the application now helps us to achieve is that if server 1 goes down today, okay, we do what? In an instant switch, okay, we switch over to what? To server 2, because we cannot afford what? That downtime based on our how to use. Okay. So that's what and how to use, and that's how you determine that's how you determine a recovery time objective. Okay. So now let us look at a recovery point objective. Okay. If that's clear, let's look at the recovery point objective. Okay. So let me also say that in any BIA or in any business excellence, you see your RTO, okay, and your RPU, okay, they are very, very important. Okay, so those are like the backbones of the BIA. All right. So what is an RPO? So when we say RPO, so we understood that RPO is your minimum downtime that you are willing to pass with. What is RPO? So RPO means that what is the minimum data load that you can accept? Okay, so that means that can we accept a data loss of up to 120 megabytes? Okay, so and most times your RPO follows your RTO, because when you look at how transactions occur in an RTO, okay, it means that your data are replicating real time. So you will also not want to afford any data missing. Okay. So let's say for instance, that you want to accept a minimum loss of about 120 megabytes or 150 megabytes. So that means that the if your application goes down today, you are willing to accept a data loss of about 150 megabytes. Okay. So that means whatever transaction is going on within that time, okay, it means you won't be able to actually get that particular transaction. So now let me put it in practical way. So now, how do you feel as a as a customer? You go into your banking application one day, and of course you want to now see you want to see a list of transactions that you've done, let's say for the past 30 days. And on getting to your application, you see that you for a particular day, all right, which happens to be probably the day you made the highest transaction, you cannot see any transaction history for that day. Right. So how do you now feel as a customer? Okay. So that now speaks to the fact that for a company or for a business that is ensuring that they don't want to have a minimum loss, it therefore means that you need to ensure that all your data are well replicated in real time, and such that whenever server A goes down, server B takes up and continues to work to replicate what those data. Okay. So an RPO is also the same thing with what you have in it will also be the same as what you have in RPO. So once you say your RPO is the minimum downtime of 0, your RPO is also what is also a minimum loss, a minimum data loss of what of 0. Okay, you cannot afford to lose any data, or this can even have regulatory impact, because if there are, so we have some of these investigations that go on within the banking environment, and then probably the regulators are trying to do some confirmation, and then because you have set your own RPU to be probably 150 megabytes, you have lost that data within an instant, and then the regulator is unable to get that. They're unable to present that fact. Okay, so that can probably lead to fine. Okay, so it's just to make you see the very much importance of having a BIA plan for your organization. All right. So now, when we now go to the financial and operational impact, okay. So this is very practical enough to say, if I know that my business operates 247 as a banking environment, okay, you always want your customers to make you always want your customers to get your services at any point in time. Okay. So some of us, there are instances whereby you possibly want to make payments. Okay, it has happened to me. I don't know if it has happened to others too. Yeah. So you want to make a payment, okay, and then you are trying so hard to make the payment, and then it keeps on reversing. Okay. So what is happening at the back end is that particular service is not available at that time. All right. So, and that can be very good for you as a customer. Okay. And then let's say you witness that in about that even happened to like 2 or 3 of you, and then because you are so much loyal to this bank, you like their service and all of that, but then it keeps on displacing you. So what then happens? What then happens in an instance? You do what? You switch over to to another bank. Okay. So that's why you see some people saying, okay, oh, I have some of these other fintech banks. I have OP, I have PAMPay, I have blah blah blah. Okay. So that when their major banks is having issues, they just do what they switch over to one of these fintech apps, which they so much rely on. Okay. So now let's bring it back to the financial impact. So the financial impact now, it therefore means that if a single customer is unable to make transactions on your application, okay, and that customer switch over to another application, okay, and it happens to several customers like that. So what do you think is happening to the revenue of the organization? The revenue of the organization is definitely dipping, okay, because so imagine that such continues to happen, and then people are now moving from your bank to another bank, okay, because I cannot trust the service. I cannot say your service is so much available, all right, then because of that, I begin to move over. So which means that it can have what a big financial impact on my business. Okay, if I don't put in place a business impact analysis and then put in place and measure my RCU and RPU, okay, to ensure that I continue to work. I continue to withstand disruption. So remember the first when I started, I said ability to adapt and withstand disruption. Okay. So regardless of whatever disruption you have, that ability for you to adapt is what we call business resilience. Okay. So it will definitely affect your what's it called, your financial and an operational impact. Okay. So in your day-to-day activities, also when your system goes down. So as an employee, how do you feel? Okay. Will you be able to achieve? So just even imagine that. Okay, so I remember there was one day, and I had a colleague. I was trying to get something done in the system. We have this board deliverable that we need to meet up in the next 2 hours. Okay, and we were trying so hard to do this, and the network was very frustrating. Not only was the network frustrating, the avenue was not going through that day. Okay, so imagine we are not able to meet up that board deliverable. You know, it's actually going to have an operational impact because it's supposed to be for a regulatory issue. Okay, so you're going to have an operational impact on the business. Okay, because when the business is not supposed to, when yes, your employees are supposed to actually be operational or having their day-to-day activity going on well, they won't be able to have it going on well because you are failed to have a business impact analysis. Okay. Another example you can give is okay, for instance, in a manufacturing setting, okay, so I have people say, oh, do you think an IT editor works in a manufacturing side? Oh, well, you have many IT editors working in manufacturing. Okay, so across all businesses, as long as you have IT supporting your business, you see an IT editor there. Okay, so for a manufacturer, so say a friend of mine reached out to me at a point in time. I said, oh, that okay, so I called him that night and then he said it's currently um it's currently in their factory. Okay, he's trying to supervise of loading and offloading of stuff. And I was surprised, like, wow, you guys don't do this. When did you start going over the night to go and supervise offloading and loading of stuff? And he said their machine broke down. So one of the machines that normally helps them to issue out stock, okay, actually broke down. So they need to now go there physically to they need to go there physically to ensure that. So what does that mean? It means that the interdependency supporting that particular machine broke down. And the business has not been able to bring in place a business impact analysis to identify that process as a critical process, okay? And then ensure that the IT dependencies that this particular process is relying on should have a backup, okay? So that therefore now means that when that machine broke down, okay, because the company is trying to ensure that they don't lose money because of course in the manufacturing settings, you have your customers that are already waiting for your goods, okay? Because you don't want to lose money, then it's now impact your operations because those guys that are supposed to be used for um, other important issues within the organization are now brought on board to start coming to supervise the loading and offloading of what of goods. So we are just saying that if you as a business you don't properly ensure that you bring in place proper business impact analysis by measuring your recovery time objective, which is your minimum downtime, okay, and measuring your recovery point objective, which is your minimum data that you can lose, okay, and also measuring your financial and operational impact. you will find yourself struggling when you have issues, when you have disruptions in business. Okay, so like from the example I've given, you can see that these disruptions will always come, no matter how solid your business is. Okay, no matter um how much process you have put in place. Okay, decisions will always come. But what is important for you as a business is, have you evaluated your businesses according to these different areas highlighted under BIE, and then ensure that it does not impact your financial, and then it does not also stress out um your operations as well. Okay, all right. So I don't know when if there are questions, do you have any questions? Okay. All right. So if there are questions, you can drop them in the chat box, okay, or probably raise your hand so that I can attend to them. All right. So I believe that you understand up to this point on what the business impact analysis is, how you can identify your critical process in the organization as an IT auditor, okay, how you can determine your recovery time objective based on your critical process, okay, and then how you can also determine your recovery point objective, which is the minimum acceptable data loss time, okay, and also determining the financial and what and operational impact, okay. And just like I said, BI is a document, really. Okay, so once you have your critical process, you have PO, you have CO, okay, your operational impact. So for each of those critical process, you now start saying, okay, so let's say that in our bank, for instance, let's say what we make in a day is, let's say, 100 million naira, for example. So for that 100 million, and I'm not saying that if this system goes down today, how much are we going to lose? Okay, so if the system goes down today, it means that if the system goes down for 6 hours, okay, and then we are making 100 million. 100 million means 24 hours. So what I would say is that 6 divided by 24 times 100 million. So that is the financial impact that this particular breakdown we have if we don't put in place a business in fact if we don't put in place a backup procedure for our critical processes. Okay, so I'm just showing you how you can quantify financial impact for each of those business. Similarly, if what you are making in a manufacturing business is, let's say 200 million, for example, if your system goes down for 5 hours, okay, for example, if it goes down 5 hours, how do you now measure? You say 5 divided by 200 million, okay, so that gives you the amount that you are going to lose. You are going to lose for that day if you don't put in place backup strategies. Okay. All right. So if that's been understood, so let's move into our recovery strategies. Okay. So for recovery strategy, so we have 5 different areas. Okay. So according to we have 5 different areas. So we have the hot site. Okay. We have the warm site. Okay. We have the cloud-based disaster recovery, and then we have the cost versus recovery speed. So this one is just this cost versus recovery speed is just what we'll use it to sum up the different strategies, okay, that we have under recovery strategy. Okay. So when we speak to different different sides in business resilience, okay. So the outside speaks to, remember I said that your RPU, your RTU is what is going to determine what type of backup procedure are you actually going to put in place. okay, for your business. All right. So if my RPU and RTO is 0, like I was saying earlier, if I cannot afford to lose any data, I cannot afford to go down. Okay. It therefore means that what I'm going to put in place is going to be an outside recovery strategy. So an outside recovery strategy says that this is the how we have to, what's best to it. So just from the word ought, we say this is a very much available process, okay, that supports your current IT dependency as quick as possible. Okay. So it therefore means that, so when I was saying that if you have a server 1 and you have a server 2, okay, it therefore means that at the very instant for an off-site environment, my server 2 needs to be very much active. As it's replicating, it is in a stealth mode. So when I say stealth mode, we mean that it's just like you are hibernating something. Yeah, hibernation. When you hibernate your system, you know, at a button click, it comes up, right? So it therefore means that my server 2 is very much active. Okay. What I just need is to just wake it up. Guy, wake up, and then it's saying it's taking over from server 1. All right. So the outside just means that it is quickest the quickest available interdependencies, okay, to support your business operation. Okay. So your server 2 will support the server 1. All right. So that's what an off-site is. Okay. Now, so when we now speak to the one side, so what we are saying is that for one side, it therefore means that based on my business operations, so when I was saying, earlier, I was saying that you identify critical business process in the organization. Okay. I was saying that in a banking environment, you probably have payment, you have deposits, okay, you have foreign exchange services, you have investment services, okay, you probably have some other services such as loans, okay, within the same environment. You might also have venture capital depending on what the bank is actually operating on. All right. So if my critical processes are payments, withdrawals, okay, and let's say my other businesses, okay, are loans, all right, which are not so physical. So, and let's look at so we said that those critical processes, we say they are high, all right. Let's say the critical processes are high are payments and withdrawals, okay. So now let's say the medium and low are, let's say, the loan services. Probably we have an application that does our loan services. So you know that typically, depending on the type of loan you want to get in a bank, loan is not something that you just come to the bank, um, today and then you get disbursed. Okay, it takes some series of confirmation, okay, including some verification. Okay, the bank wants to be sure that you can pay back that money. Okay, they don't just give you money like that. They want to be sure that, oh, when we give this person our money, the person can pay back. So you have a lot of processes, documentations, verifications that go through that process. So for that, it means that your loan application app, your loan application rather, is probably is a medium process, not critical one. Okay. So that means that we now say, let's say in a day, the number of loans we get in our bank is let's say 10. Okay. So that means within that 10, for that 10 applications that we're getting for loan, it does not come every hour. Let's say every 2 hours. Okay. Or let's say it comes every 1 hour. Okay. So that means that for every 30 minutes, we have a sphere of 30 minutes. So that means we can say if each loan is coming in 1 hour, that means in 30 minutes time, we have an acceptable downtime of 30 minutes. So it therefore means that if that server goes down, in 30 minutes, we are safe. Okay, because it is not a critical process. Okay, so what do we now? How do we now? How do we now measure our code side? So the code side is now saying that because you have stated that your process, which is medium, like the loan applicant was saying, which is medium, is you have a minimum downtime of 30 minutes and an average of 30 minutes. It therefore means that you can put in place a backup IT dependency service, okay, that can go down for 30 minutes. Okay. So that now means that for whatever item I want to put in place, okay, our item we can decide to have a spare time of 30 minutes. Okay. That means I can decide to bring in I can decide to bring in a server 2, okay, but that server 2 may not be in stealth mode. So you know why? Because I will say definitely when we get to cost and recovery script. You know why? Because um the cost they are going to incur on your side for a system to be operating to be replicating as soon as possible, the amount of cost they are going to be incurring is going to be different from the amount of cost they are going to take you are going to incur for a system that is replicating in, let's say, 30 minutes, or for a system that can come up in 30 minutes. Okay. So the cost is different. Okay. So which is why for all sites that are critical processes, the cost is high. And for those medium ones, the cost is kind of a bit lower. Okay. So therefore means that whatever server I'm putting in place can probably be in that mode for 30 before it comes down. Okay. So what I'm just saying is that for the recovery strategy that I'm putting in place, we therefore need to ensure that it aligns with our recovery point objective and recovery time objective. So remember I said that your RPO and RPO is the backbone of business resilience. So you can see I'm always making reference to your RPO and RTO. Okay. So what my RPO and RTO says, what determines what type of recovery strategy am I going to put in place. All right. So thirdly, we have the code side. What does the code side what does code side means? Okay. So the code side just means that if I have a business, okay, in a banking environment, all right, we have stated that you have different processes again. So I stated that you have different processes again, okay, and these processes means that we have also ranked and say high, medium, low. Okay, so your low businesses are probably some applications that are used for CRM, maybe your customer relationship management, just to keep a database of your customers. Okay, so that therefore means that that particular application is low. Okay, so therefore means that, let's say I normally let's say somebody is in charge of that application, somebody just goes to that application to probably go and upload customers name. Let's say at the end of the day, daily. Okay, let's say that's like an EOD activity. So it therefore means that whatever I'm going to put in place, okay, would probably can go for 8 hours or so. All right. So that means I can have my my server probably in my environment. That server for the application can be in my environment, and then the replication I can put it in somewhere in another data center. So I can try put it in another data center. Okay. So what then therefore means is that because I have a code side environment, okay, that therefore means that, so because I have a code site environment, that therefore means that I can rest on my house and say this application is not that critical. Let's do some 8 hours. Okay, so put the application in a schedule for 8 hours, and then we are reducing a lesser cost, okay, than an application that is recovering in 30 minutes, or an application that is recovering in what? That's recovering instantaneously. Okay. All right. I hope that is understood. Okay. So before we come here, so we have disaster recovery. So we have different disaster recovery methods. Okay. So we have something called the cloud-based disaster recovery. Okay, which you can also call the cloud backup. Okay. Okay, so when we speak to a cloud-based disaster recovery, we are speaking to your cloud backup. So according to this, cloud backup refers to the practice of securely storing the offsite storage library in a remote data center, okay, operated by third-party cloud service provider. Okay, so sometimes when we say cloud, it is not really a cloud like that. It's not like you're hanging your data in an atmosphere. Okay, it just means that you are transferring the responsibility of securing your data to another party. Okay, so what the party does is that the party now will encrypt your data in another data center. So for instance, if I'm in Nigeria, okay, so we have different cloud service providers. You have Microsoft, you have Google Cloud Provider, you have AWS, which is Amazon Web Service, you have Huawei, okay, you have a quite number of them like that, but these are like the quite popular ones that we have. So when you have your data with any of these guys, what they do is that they store your data in another data center. So if I'm in Nigeria, my own data center can be in North America or can be in Central Europe. Okay, so what they do is that once the data is in North America or North Europe, okay, so that's where your data is. So anytime they want to get your data is coming from North Europe or Central Europe or wherever they store the data. All right, but because even some of these cloud providers understand the importance of business resilience, so you can have your data in North Europe, you will now have another backup of your data in West Europe. Okay, so what they are trying to say is that even if our data center in North Europe goes down, we can help you to recover your data in West Europe. Okay, so because they already understand the importance of business impact analysis, they have this process in place to ensure that your you can always recover your data. Okay, so that's that's how this cloud provider, this cloud is actually operates. Okay, all right. So now, but why do we prefer cloud environments over offsite? We'll get to offsite shortly. Why do you prefer cloud over an offsite environment? Okay, so the cloud environment typically it helps you to encrypt your data in transit. Okay, so when we say encrypt, so encryption just means that I am converting something that is okay. Let me put it this way. Let's say, for instance, you have so in Nigeria we have different tribes, right? So let's say you want to say something that is want to say something, you have somebody with you and then you want to converse with someone in your language because you don't want the person to actually understand what you're saying. So what do? You switch to your language, right? So when you are speaking to your language, what are you doing? You are making sure that the other person does not understand what you guys are saying. Okay. What you are just doing is that you are encrypting that information from that person. Okay. So that's what encryption is. The encryption just means that when I'm transferring my data in a plain word, you can see whatever we can see what is on screen. We have outside, one side, both sides on the screen. But when I'm encrypting that information, when that information is going to the cloud, okay, that information is getting encrypted. Okay, such that a third party cannot intercept. Okay. So even if a third party intercept, all right, a third party will not be able to what? To decrypt, will not be able to what? Understand what is in that data, what is transferring to that remote data center. So therefore, encryption simply means the act of converting plain text into what? Hash text. Okay, so that is the definition of encryption. Okay, from my stack. It is a means of converting a plain text into a cipher text or a hash text. So if I say Ada is a girl, encryption will say comma hash question mark. All right. You do not understand what is there, okay, but the system understands what is there. Okay, so leave that to the system to decrypt. All right, so that's what encryption means. Okay, so and it also ensures that your data that is stored also has encryption keys on a need to know basis. So I said that whenever you are speaking your language to somebody, it is only somebody that understands your language that can decode it. Okay, so same way goes to encryption. If you are transferring your data to the cloud, okay, there is a key that is given to you. Okay, so it therefore means that whenever I want to decrypt my backup, whatever I'm sending to the cloud, okay, it therefore means that I will now do what? I will need to use that my encryption key, okay, to decrypt that information so that you can have access to what we have actually encrypted. Okay. Okay. So according to ICAN, it also says that you should also verify that your backup and restore times are appropriate, okay, to ensure your RTO and RPO. Okay. So it says that, for example, an IS auditor, must ensure that a real restore would require network transfer for a larger part, potentially the entirety of the infrastructure in scope. So what is this language saying? Okay. What it's just saying is that for those data that you are transferring to the cloud, okay, it therefore means that whenever you are choosing your cloud service, okay, we are saying that your RPO and RTO must be aligned, first of all, okay. So if we are saying we want to get data from, if the system goes down today, okay, our backup is cloud, okay. So some organizations you can either maintain both the on-premise and the cloud. When we say on-premise means that a data center or IT dependencies that are either within the environment or outside the environment, that is on-premise, okay. But when we say cloud, it means that you are storing it up there in another data center, not within your geographical location, okay. So if you want to use a cloud as either your off-site, your on-site, or your code site, okay, what you need to do is to first of all ensure that that cloud service you are using actually aligns with your RPO and RTO. So if your RPO and RTO is 0, a minimum downtime, minimum loss is 0. Okay. So what we ensure is that either we are picking AWS or we are picking Google, we are picking what else? Azure, Microsoft Azure, we need to ensure that that particular service provider can give us our data or can switch on our data in an instant of that zero downtime. Okay. So another auditor must ensure that your recovery strategy is aligned with RPO and RTO for the cloud. Okay. And also ensure that you have restoration for those data. Okay. So when we speak to restoration of data, we are not saying that it's not enough, okay, to say that I am backing up my cloud. Also, it's not enough to say I'm backing up my data or to say I'm replicating my data, okay? So as an IS auditor, so what you normally think as an IS auditor, you need to always think from the position of risk. So IS auditor will say risk, 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 okay? So that's why you say, sometimes you say auditors are kind of troublesome, but then you need to also understand that as an auditor, you need to always be thinking from the position of risk, 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 okay? In as much as saying that we are backing up this our data in one of our sites, okay? Have we even for one day tested this data that we're backing up? Okay, because you know that you are not needing this data at every moment in time. Okay, but what if at the point of when we are trying to start that particular IT dependency, or at the point of when we are trying to bring on board that particular server, and then it fails, it's not coming up. You know, when I was saying it earlier, it's very sweet to say I'll just go to my system, to my server, and just click on one button, and then everything is back. Very sweet, okay? But if from the position of risk, I have not been going to that my server too. Remember, I mentioned I used an example of someone server too. If I have not been using, if I have not been going to my server too to go and regularly test it, okay, I'll go to my server too. I take out all the data from my server too, okay. I bring it on my database and I do a testing, okay. Once I get a successful testing, a successful backup testing, therefore means that my data is ready. That means anytime, any day, when we switch to server 2, we are good to go. All right. So now, what we are now saying is that from the position of risk, as an IT auditor, you need to ensure that those data that you are packing up, okay, those data are very are reliable. Okay, and how do you ensure they are reliable? Is by properly testing them. Okay, all right. So when you test those data, you are sure that. So in an organization, some organization will say you should ensure that you test your data every month. Okay, some even do bi-weekly. Okay, so depending on the culture and depending on how critical that business process is. Okay, so you need to ensure that you are doing a restoration testing of your data. So an organization that is not doing restoration frequently is put with. So even if you put in place all critical, even if you put in place all backup strategies to ensure that you can quickly recover, quickly you can quickly adapt. Okay, if you have not done testing before, it just means that you are just gambling because you are just putting your backup strategy into a guess mode. Okay, all right. So for it's just like when I started, I said use them thing and use them thing. So if for instance you want to start you want to have uh, a discussion like this, okay, and then you did not even check your airtel to be sure that there's even a service on it. Okay, that's they are testing it, okay. And then you just decide, okay, because I've always seen that I have this airtel on my phone, and then I'll just go ahead and just switch over to whenever my MTN goes down. Okay. You can be in the guest mode because by the time you decide to switch over to Airtel, you can just see that there's no even network on this Airtel, or you say probably a setting that probably been disabled, which you need to now go and to enable back from the from your mobile phone. Okay, so that's what we are saying, that it's not enough to put in backup strategy. You also need to ensure that we test those data. Okay. All right. So so let's move to so before we come to cost and recovery speed, so let's just discuss around the offsite backup. Okay. So now that we understood what the cloud backup is, okay. So we also have something called the offsite backup. So although this offsite backup is already getting relegated now. So it's getting relegated now, okay. So but we still need to have a discussion around that. So are we still together? Hello, are we still together?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so we are saying that um 12 site facility, we don't just say because we are using cloud. What if you find yourself in an environment that uses offsite? Okay, so as an IT auditor, you still need to evaluate offsite. So when we say offsite, we are just saying it is not on the cloud. Okay, so it's not on the cloud. Where is it? It is offsite. So when we say offsite, it means that we are storing it in an environment that's not within the premises of the organization. Okay, so any organization that you see that is storing their data on the same inside the same environment, okay, is at a very big risk. Okay, and when an auditor or an auditor comes, they pick it up as an exception. Okay, because if you are storing your backup in your premises, it means that if anything happens to your server one, it will also happen to your server two. Why? Because they are sharing the same services, they are sharing the same network, they are sharing the same database, they are sharing the same words inside dependency. Okay. So therefore means that whenever I have my offsite, whenever I have a backup server or a backup IT dependency inside the same compound, it is a week. Okay, we need to now take it offsite. If you cannot put it on cloud, take it outside the environment. Okay, so um so Cisa is saying that um you need to ensure that your offsite environment, okay, have some adequate controls. Okay, so for cloud, I mentioned that you are supposed to have an encryption key. Okay, which means that nobody can go and can go to your data and then understand what's going on there. Okay, unless they have an encryption key. Okay, for a cloud. Okay, but that for an offsite, it's quite different. Okay, so this is saying that your offsite environment should have adequate access control, such as locked doors. Okay, locked doors, no windows, and active surveillance. Okay, so somebody will say, so when you are saying locked doors and no windows, what happens? You have a cooling system in offsite environment. In data centers, they have cooling systems. Okay, I think I've been to quite a number of them. Okay, so you have cooling systems that ensure that the system is running at a minimal temperature. Okay, and active surveillance. Okay, so access control, no right control, such as locked doors somewhere and right surveillance. So from the starting point, before you can even go to a data center, okay, somebody within your organization, probably your IT infrastructure guy, would have access to book ahead. Okay, so once the person book ahead on the system, all right, they book the day they are going to the data center, then they go. So when they get there, they confirm the booking ID with what they share, with what they send to them, and they allow them to give them the key. Because when you get to a data center, you have different companies that are having their data, sorry, that are having their network devices, servers, and other IT dependencies inside the data center. So everybody is separated by a rack. So a rack is just like, call it a shelf, okay? So inside that shelf, you have your own server, you have your own network device, you have your own database sitting on the servers, okay? So you have your own shelf, put it that way. So you can just even beside it, when you are beside it, you will see another company one with their shelf having different internet like that, okay? Everything is locked, but you'll be given your own key. When you get your own key, you walk into the data center, okay? Most times accompanied by one of the um data center personnel, okay, so that you can have access to the data center and then do whatever I want to do. Okay. Maybe you are going there to probably to do a backup testing, probably take some backup testing, or you want to go there to do some decommissioning. Okay. So when I say decommissioning, it just means that maybe one of our IT dependency is has reached end of life. So when we say an IT dependency has reached end of life, what we are just saying is that even for your mobile phone, there will be a point that you see that you start lagging, okay? And that lagging can probably be to the fact that it's already getting to the end of life, okay? So for finance guy, they will say the economic value is out, okay? So at that point, or the vendor of that particular network device have stated in their website that this device has reached end of life. So you need to replace it. In that instance, you go there to go and do the commission. So you just remove that particular IT dependency and then you replace it. Okay. So you need to ensure that you remove it and disconnect. Or else if you don't disconnect, you'll be getting charged. Okay, but we discuss that under cost and recovery suite. All right. So yeah, so that's for access control. Somebody will accompany you and then you have access to the door. And then for surveillance, you have CCTV camera everywhere. All right. So they'll tell you that don't ensure that you don't touch another person's what's it called? Ensure you don't touch another person's rack center, okay, another person's rack, okay. Ensure that you don't lean on the shelves, okay. Ensure that you don't touch any of the wires or the cables or anything, all right. So just do what you are there to do and then go. Okay. So all of these are just to ensure that there are critical processes in place. All right. All right. Okay, okay. So then the proper environmental control include the UPS, okay? Yeah, UPS operating on a properly waste floor with proper smoke and water detectors installed. Okay, so that ensures that whenever perhaps there's a fire outbreak or so, you have um, proper environmental control in place to ensure environmental control to ensure that you avert that process to avert that disaster. Okay. Um. Okay. So yeah, Cisa also mentioned that um. Cisa also mentions that you have the types of backup devices. Okay. It says that you need to choose it based on four critical things: standardization, capacity, okay, speed, and price. So now let's look at that with our cost and recovery speed. Okay. So Twitter is saying that, or Isaka is saying that rather that before you can choose somebody speaking. Okay. So Isaka is saying that before you can choose a particular recovery strategy that you want to put in place, you need to look at four things. You need to look at standardization, capacity, okay, speed, which of course is there, and then cost. Okay. Now, what is standardization? Standardization is just saying that every technology require um every technology, okay, require their different what's it called, there are different backups. Okay. For instance, when you are talking of standardization, if I'm putting in let's say I'm using an HP server, okay, and my backup, I want to go and use probably a Dell server, okay, to do my backup, okay. Do you know that if based on my research, if Dell server does not work with an HP server, do you know that can cause us an issue? Because we'll just replicate the server and then we'll see that by the time we need to onboard our server too, we'll see that it's not working effectively. So there's a need for standardization. If you know that an HP server is what would actually work with your HP server, so you need to fix your HP server with the other HP server. Okay, it therefore means that your cost might actually increase, because if a Dell server is lesser than an HP server which you want to use for backup, you dare not use it because it will impact your business when your spend goes down. So you need to bring on board the same cost you have used to bring on board the server 1 for server 2 as well. That means you need to bring in 2 HP servers into your environment, server 1, server 2. Okay, so that is what standardization is looking at. So look at what we have and then look at what components would actually be compatible with it. All right. Now, capacity. Capacity just means that backup media, it says backup media should have adequate capacity to reduce the number of media necessary to implement a backup set. Okay. It just means that for whatever capacity that I'm going to make use of, okay, I need to ensure that the capacity is adequate. Okay, so that means if I want to buy an HP server of let's say of 100 terabytes, okay, it therefore means that whatever backup I also be bringing should also have the same capacity. Okay, because if I'm bringing a lower capacity, therefore means that within smaller time the space becomes what it gets filled up. Okay, so it means that the capacity we have on the capacity we have on server 1 will also be the same we have on what on server 2. Okay, I hope that is clear. Now speed. Before we pick whatever disaster recovery plan we want to put in place, okay, we need to look at speed. So when we are talking of speed, we're looking at, when we look at speed, we look at RPO, RPO. If I say my RPO, RPO is 0, no downtime, it therefore means that whatever disaster recovery I'm going to put in place must come at a very good speed. Okay, if I'm using an HP server, okay, if I know that the second HP server I want to implement cannot run at the same speed to afford me a minimum downtime of 0, then let me go and pick cloud environment. Okay. So when I go to my cloud, when I have a discussion with my cloud provider, they'll provide me the actual speed that I want to support the on-prem server 1 for HP that I have. Okay. So because I want to evaluate my speed, I also now go and go to the cloud. Okay, even if it means increasing my cost. Okay, but if I know that the RPO and RPO that I have is 8 hours, like the one we mentioned, there, like 8 hours, maybe for a loan application, I might not need to go and meet cloud. Okay, I might decide to probably bring in maybe a Dell server or maybe another server. Okay, just to replace the server that we have already. Okay, maybe a Meraki server. Okay, just replace what we have on board. Okay, because of we think that we don't require that speed, we can bring in any server for that. Okay, price, which is cost. So cost is also part of it. Okay, but what is important when you are picking your backup strategy is not even cost now. What is important when you are picking your backup strategy is what benefit do you want to derive from it? Because if you are thinking of cost, and like I was saying earlier, if you are thinking of cost and you know that your minimum downtime is 0, you cannot even think of cost at that point, because what is on you is I need to ensure that I don't have financial impact breakdown and I don't have operational impact breakdown as well. Okay. Okay, so you think cost is relative to what particular solution you want to put in place that will affect your business operations. Okay, so my cost, the higher my RPRTU, okay, the lower my cost. If my RPRTU is 0, then my cost is high. All right, so that's how to calculate the cost. If my RPRTU is low, let's say I have 30 minutes, my cost becomes what? Becomes low a bit. And if my RPRTU is 8 hours, then my cost what? It goes down. Okay, same thing as my speed. Okay, so depending on whatever strategy I want to put in place, then I use that to determine um, the cost I'll be incurring. Okay, right. So I hope that is understood. Okay. We stick together. Are we stick together? Are we stick together? Can anybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So okay, so now let's move to something we call backup management. Okay, then to backup management. Okay, so when we speak to uh backup management, okay, we're speaking to how do we ensure that those backup that we have, okay, how do we ensure that we keep those backup that we have properly? Okay, so that's what the backup management is. Okay, so how do we manage those backup that we have in place? Okay, so some people call it backup. Well, I call it backup team, or some also call it backup management. All right. So now under backup management, we're breaking them down into 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have the full incremental and differential. You have the backup retention policy. You have the offsite storage, and then although we saw this offsite storage, we have the monitoring and logging. Okay. Now, under full incremental and differential backup. So when we say a full backup, what does it mean? So a full backup means that, according to ICAN, it says this backup stream copies all files and folders to the backup media. Okay, creating one backup set. Okay, with one or more media, depending on media capacity. The main advantage is having a unique repository in case of restoration, but it requires more time and media capacity than other methods. All right, that's ICAN definition. So for full backup, it just means that in a simpler text, it means that I'm creating a whole backup set. Okay, all the files and folders. So let me give you an instance. So let's say today is Friday. Yeah, I'm sorry. Let's say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Okay, so if our backup policy says that we should always back up our data at the end of the week. All right, so what we are doing is full backup. It means that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we are backing up all our data. That's the full backup. Okay, so we are backing up all our data for the week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Everything is getting backed up. Okay, somebody might want to say, are we taking this? Are we backing it manually? No. If you are using a cloud environment, it is not manual. Okay, it is going into the cloud service every day. Okay, but at the last day of the week, you can try to do a full backup, right? do a backup of every data that you have and then back them up into the class. Okay, that's a full backup of all the activities for the week. All right. Now, incremental. What does incremental really mean? So incremental means ICAN says an incremental backup copies the files and folder that have changed or are new since the last increment or full backup. Okay. For example, ICAN says if there's a backup on day one, okay, the incremental backup on day two will only copy the changes from day one to day two. Okay. Now, on Monday, we backed up our data. Okay. On day two, we backed up our data. On day three, what happened? We only back up the difference between day two and day three. All right. On Monday, which is day one, we back up on day one. Let me go again. On Monday, we backed up day one. On day two, we only back up what has changed between day one and day two. That is incremental. Where I say addition. What has changed since the last time we did this backup? Okay. So even if I do a full backup, say for during the week, I've done a full backup from Monday to Friday. Now on Saturday, what I'm going to be backing up will be what has changed between Friday and Saturday. Okay. So incremental just means that what has changed from the last time that we did our backup. Okay, so that's what incremental means, and it's the type of backup management or backup thing. Okay, so now what are differential? Okay, what are differential? Differential, people tend to interchange differential with incremental, but they are not the same. Okay, so differential just means that it also says that you only back up copies of files that have been added or changed since the full backup was provided. Okay, so what a differential does is that there are possibilities that in the course of you doing your backup or incremental or full backup testing, you must have probably miss out on some data. Okay, so the differential is just saying that the difference for what you missed out is what I'm going to back up. Let me give an example. Let's say in your bank, you always have a transaction of 10,000 data every day. Okay, so the one you have transaction of 10,000. Day two, transaction of 10,000. Day three, you now have a transaction of 9,900. Okay. On day four, what I'm going to be backing up is the 100. That 100 is the difference. Okay, because my data is supposed to be 10,000 and I have 9,900. So that 100 is what I'm going to back up. Okay. So differential just means that the difference between my data. Okay. So and differential normally come up probably when you are doing some kind of investigation. Okay. Let's say I know that this my data is supposed to be 10,000 and then I have 9,900. Okay. Oh, so where is the remaining 100? I have to now go and do a run to now back up only that difference to ensure that my data is complete. Okay. So while incremental, we only back up what I can. That same day. Okay. So incremental, the difference between incremental and differential is that for day one, I'm backing up. Day two, I'm backing up. Day three, I also back up only day three. That is what has increased from day two to day three, only day three. Okay. So why differential, we only back up that difference between the two and the three. That means if there was 10,000 on the two and 9,900 on the three, that means the only difference I was backing up is 100. All right. I hope that is understood. Okay, so let's stick to backup retention policy. Okay. So for backup retention policy, what we are saying is that what policies do you have in place, okay, to ensure that your data is retained for a particular period of time. Okay. So for instance, some companies will say their critical data to be retained for 5 years. Some will say 7 years, some will say 10 years, depending on what the policy says. Okay. So what the policy says is what will what the policy says is what you follow when you are doing your retention. Okay. So if my retention period is 5 years, for example, okay. So it therefore means that whatever data you're going to be backing up should go for should be for 5 years. Okay. So you need to now go to the backup history. Okay, to now go and check when was the last time some of your backups are deleted. Okay. Once it goes beyond 5 years, then it's a problem because the organization have stated that the retention policy is 5 years. Okay. So which is what you actually need to follow. Okay. So we have something also called offsite storage. We saw offsite storage before. Okay. So, but for offsite, there's one more thing that we need to discuss, which is something called the backup strategy. So when we talk about backup strategy on the outside, you are just taking to there's something called the 3-2-1 backup strategy. Okay. So what does 3-2-1 backup strategy mean? It helps us to save multiple copies of data on different storage devices and at different locations. Okay. So it says Ethica says that a 3-2-1 backup strategy reduces the impact, okay, of a single point of failure. So it therefore means that if my server goes down, there's any error, any media error or stolen device, okay, I can rely on my other backup strategy. Okay. And what does it mean? What does 3-2-1 mean? 3-2-1 means creating one primary backup and 2 copies of the data. Okay, that means I'm creating one primary backup. That means if okay, it's just saying that if one of my backup, one of my primary server, okay, goes down, I have a primary backup, okay, and then I'm not creating 2 copies of that data. So if I have a primary backup, that means I want to create another 2 copy. That 2 copy, I can put it in, I can decide to put it on cloud. Okay, I decide to put it on cloud, and I can decide to put it on a tape. Okay, so that's I'm creating 2 copies of the data. Now, what does the tool mean? The tool means that I'm saving backup to 2 different types of data. So backup means that I'm saving 2 backup rather to 2 different types of media. It means that I'm saving two backup. That means one will be offsite, maybe in the data center. Another one will be on the cloud. Okay, so that means that I'm saving backup to 2 different types of media. Okay. One now means that keeping at least 1 backup file offsite. It means that I must keep 1 backup file offsite. Okay, I can decide to now put one of my backup file offsite again. Okay, so that means I'm doing what? A 3-2-1 backup, a 3-2-1 backup strategy. The 3 means that 1 backup storage and 2 copies of data. Okay. The 2 means that saving those backups to 2 different types of data. One in the cloud, one in offsite. 1 means that keeping at least 1 backup file offsite. Okay. Once I've kept 1 offsite, then that's enough. So that means that 3-2-1 offsite. That means at any point in time, whenever I need my data, I can get it. Okay. Okay. So for you to understand that this type may not be applicable to you cannot keep You know, I feel like you need to keep two different copies of data, okay? You cannot keep two copies of data on the cloud, okay? Just you can only keep one on the cloud and then one offsite, okay? So that explains it. Okay, so monitoring and logging, okay? So, okay, monitoring and logging just means that for those data that you are backing up, okay, you want to ensure that you are putting in monitoring in place to ensure that you are properly monitoring those data. So that if there's any issue along transferring of those data, you can know because from your server to the cloud, if there's any, you put in alert mechanism in place so that the same auditor will know that there's an issue with this data, and then you can quickly go back and rectify whatever the issue is. Okay, so that's the monitoring. So when we now say logging now means that for all the data that I'm backing up in the cloud, can I always go back to the cloud and spool back those data? Okay, can I go back to the cloud and see who backed up this data? Okay, can I go back to the cloud and see when was this testing of backup, when was it done? Okay, so that is what the monitoring and logging is under backup management. So all of this ensures, helps to ensure that your backup is intact. Okay. Um. So okay. 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 So all right. So problem. So I want to ask, do we want to go for break or should we continue? Do you want to go for probably a 14 to 15 minute break before we continue, or should we just continue? So can anybody hear me?
Yes, we can
Yes,
hear
sir.
you.
Yeah,
Can
we can
hear
go
you.
for break, sir. We can go for 15 minutes break.
So we can go for a 15 minute break, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So thank you. So let's go for a 15 minute break. So by 2 p.m. we'll be back to see where we can finish this off with 5 minutes 1 hour. All right. So thank you. We can go for a 15 minute break, and then by 2 p.m. we'll be back to finish up. All right. Thank you. Okay. Welcome back. So please confirm that you can hear me so that we can commence.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you. We'll go now. Okay. So yeah. So we have a few slides left to few slides to deal with. Okay. So yeah. So let's go to failover restore testing. Okay. All right. So for failover and restore testing, so what I'm saying is that so we already stated earlier that there is no essence of you having the there's no essence of you having a backup, okay, a backup IT dependency, and you are not testing them, okay. You have risk scattered all over. So it therefore means that there's a need for us to properly ensure that we bring on restoration testing to our plan. All right. So under this area, we need to look at 4 areas, which is periodic disaster recovery testing, failover simulation, restore testing, and then evidence documentation. Okay. When we speak to periodic disaster recovery testing, so periodic disaster recovery means that if our system goes down today, okay, just like we said, have we tested it, okay, to ensure that when the real event happens, we can quickly come up, okay. So what we'll do is that we would have one of our servers, okay, that's one of our applications, okay, we have it on the, we have one of our applications on the server, okay, where we can do whatever I want to do, okay. Or let me say, for instance, the core banking application in a banking environment that helps you to process payments, okay. So what you do is that, so let's match, so I'll just imagine if periodic data testing and failover. So what you do is that you will replicate the same service that you have on server 1, you will replicate it on server 2, okay. So don't forget that I said your server 2 is a mirror of what you have on server 1. That means everything you have on server 1 is on server 2. That means I can do everything we have on server 1 on server 2, okay. Now, for us to now properly carry out our periodic DR testing or failover simulation, what we are going to do is that we will shut down server 1, okay. Just like I'm switching off my, it's just like I'm switching off my system, okay. So I switch off server 1 and then leave server 2 to be open, and then I will now tell my employees to log in into server 2 application and let them perform their operations. What am I trying to do? I'm trying to see whether all the processes that we have in the organization, if we can replicate the same thing on what? On server 2. For example, like I mentioned in the banking environment, that you have payments, you have those in withdrawals, you have those in investments, you have those in loans, like that, like that. You have different departments. So what you now do on server 2 is that when in an application, everybody has what they are supposed to do in an application, okay? So what you do is that you now email all of the different employees in different departments and tell them to come and log in into server 2. Okay, so they log in from their system wherever they are, and then they work on server 2. So you want to test that everything that they are doing on server 1, they can do it on server 2. So now the operations, can you post payments? Okay. For FinCons unit, can you financial control, can you post ledger? Okay, can you generate your management reports? Okay, can you do everything you can do on server 1 on server 2? Okay. For other units, just like financial advisories or investments, can you book customers investments? All right, can you book policies? Can you book certificates? Can you book an investment certificate? Can you do all of these functions on server 2? Okay, so what you are doing is that you are simulating a failover. You are doing what can happen, what can go wrong. Okay, so what can go wrong if we are using server, let's say for instance something happens today now, what can go wrong if we decide to use server 2? So you are doing that the failover simulation. Okay, so that's what we are just trying to do. All right. Okay, so install testing, but however, don't forget that if you don't do a restore testing, if you are not doing your restore testing, you cannot be sure to do a failover simulation. Why? Because like I mentioned, that if you are not being, your failover simulation is just like a replica of what you have in a normal scenario, in a normal downtime situation. So if you have not been doing your testing frequently to say, let's test our backup, okay, let's test that everything we have on server 1 is on server 2, okay, let's test that you can restore. When we upload server 1 twice server 2, you can restore and continue operations. So if you have not been doing that, then you don't have a guarantee that if you conduct a failover simulation, it is going to be successful. Okay, so we need to now ensure that you are carrying out restore testing, okay, frequently according to the organization plan. Okay, so there's something called the BCP. We'll talk on after this. So you need to ensure that you are carrying out a restoration test according to organization business continuity plan. Okay, so that whenever you want to do a failover simulation, you can quickly recover. Okay, you can quickly recover from those downtime. All right. Now, for every of the periodic testing you are doing, the failover simulation you are doing, the restoration testing that you are doing, you need to document. Okay, so you need to do a proper documentation of those events. Okay, so that whenever you have a regulatory body coming in to check your BCP, you have something to document, something to show that yes, you've been carrying out this BCP in our organization, which includes failover, periodic testing, and resource testing in the organization. Okay, so you need to properly ensure evidence document. You need to also have reports. Okay, if your failover is done quarterly, failover meeting is not going to need to have reports on each of those quarters to demonstrate that you're actually doing that. Okay, so which takes us to BCP. All right, BCP. So confidence management. Okay, so which takes us to BCP. So BCP just means that this means a business continuity plan. So remember in the earlier stage, we said that we have something called business continuity and GR. So business continuity now relates to business continuity plan. So your business continuity plan, okay, is that plan that shows how your business continues to operate where you have downtime. Okay, let me say it again. It just shows that just a document that shows how your business continues to operate where any kind of disturbance was arises. Okay, so you might want to say, so if BCP is a document that shows how my business wants to operate in the case of disturbance, so what then is the relation between BCP and business impact analysis? BCP is, say BCP is the mother of BIA, okay, but BCP encompasses the BIA itself and also encompasses all the procedures you are going to follow to ensure that you have a successful disaster recovery in place. Okay, so for us to carry out the BCP, what you need to first do is to first of all ensure that you identify the key process, just like we have for BIA as well. Okay, identify the key process. Okay, and ensure you've done your risk assessment. Okay, so you have done risk assessment to see these are the key processes that you have in the organization. Okay, now for BPP as well, you also need to also understand that you also need to have a policy. Okay, so the BPP policy, it needs to be approved by the top management. Okay, so once you have documented all the everything you want to do under everything you have, so you've carried out your business impact analysis. Okay, you discover the best strategy to put in place, you discover what are the testing procedures you need to put in place. Okay, disaster recovery. So all of this will now feed into your policy. You now say, okay, in our policy we need to ensure that we do failover simulation. Okay, in our policy we need to ensure that our periodic general testing is done quarterly. Okay, our policy also speaks to our RTR should not be lesser than 0 minutes. Okay, so we need to also ensure that our reports are communicated to the top management and even to the external stakeholders. Okay, we need to also ensure evidence documentation. So your BCP policy speaks to everything that you have. It comes from the results. Okay, so which is why you say they will tell you that a company needs to be updating their policies frequently. Why? Because things changes. Okay, so you know that as a result of our BIE is where we have been able to discover that our RPO and RTO should be 0 minutes, and this is what we also feed into our BCP. So if by next year, okay, we onboard another critical process. Okay, so let's say that the company wants to go into insurance, okay, which then becomes another critical process for us. So it therefore means that we need to now go back and update. Once we have updated our BIE, we go back and also update our BCP to also cover the new insurance business that the company is also carrying. Because if you don't update your policy, it therefore means that where there are no laws, there are no crimes, right? So it therefore means that if your IT infrastructure is not following, is doing their own, okay, it therefore means there are no policies to actually guide that that particular process. Okay, so ICAN listed different ways by which you can develop a BCP. Okay, it says you need to consider some different factors. Okay, so you need to consider your pre-disaster readiness. Okay, covering incident response, which we are going to get to very soon. It says you also need to consider your evacuation process. All right, which speaks to how do you quickly evacuate when you have disaster. Procedure for declaring a disaster. Okay, which speaks to do you have a procedure? Is it somebody? Some organization will tell you that the risk management should be the one that will communicate where there are disasters in the organization. Okay, you also need those factors are constantly under which the disaster should be declared. Okay, so there are some disasters that might not be so too big enough to be declared. So, okay, not all destructions are actually what disaster. So you can leave that to risk management team to do that. So you also need to identify to do clear identification of responsibilities in the plan. So who are those that are supposed to actually do the recovery? Who are those that are supposed to communicate to stakeholders? Okay, who are those that actually are supposed to probably exit the applications directly, or what are those who are those that are supposed to follow up around different units to ensure that they ensure that those systems that users are using are shut down. Okay. So it also contains clear identification of contract information. Okay, if you are this one speaks if you are probably subletting your BCP to somebody to an external organization. So you have companies that they sublet their BCP process to another organization. The organization will come in quarterly to come and conduct the BCP for them. Okay. You also have step-by-step explanation of recovery process. So now that you have a disaster recovery, how do you plan to now what come back? Do you first quarantine your system, or what process do you follow? Okay, to ensure that you come back into the business. Okay, to ensure that you come back into the business as planned. All right. So let me ask if you for this recovery process. Let me ask if you are, let's say your system goes down, for instance, and you want to let's say you are trying to do something. So let's say this way, you are running an application on your system. Okay, you are suffering an application, and then you discover that your system is hanging, or you're unable to go ahead with the application. Okay, so what do you do? Do you call IT, or do you shut down your system? Let's just look at this. Your system, you have a system. Let's be practical. You have a system you are working on currently. You are working on an application. Let's say maybe your payment application. You are trying to make payments, okay, and then it gets stuck, okay, or you don't understand what is going on. All right. Maybe somebody is just maybe they're taking over your system. So what do? You call the IT first, or you shut down your system? What do you do in that instance? So does anybody want to
Okay, good afternoon. Let me quickly attempt to make a try, please. First of all, you should check. I will first of all check on my connection to see whether there is still connectivity or something is wrong. After that, then if I can be able to fix it, fine. If I cannot be able to fix it, then I will quickly call for IT assistance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prince. Are there any other person wants to try? Your system is experiencing, you're experiencing probably somebody is taking over your system, or your system is you're unable to go over with what you are doing. So what do you do? Do you call your IT for, or do you shut down your system? Anybody else wants to try? Okay, thank you, Prince. So so in IT audit, in IT rather, so when you are faced with any issue like that, okay, and I'm trying to make payment, okay, as a payment guy, and then I'm unable to do it, okay. Probably I'm saying maybe my system is being taken over, okay. The first thing to do is to shut down your system, okay. You shut it down. But from an IT standpoint, IT person would quarantine the system, okay. They first of all they will isolate the system from every other system. Why? Why are they isolating? They don't want that particular vulnerability to spread into other systems, so they isolate. But for you as an user, what you need to first do is to shut down that system, okay? Because once the system is shut down, the vulnerability or probably whoever is trying to access the system will not be able to go ahead with it. Okay. So all of these are contained in your BCP. So your BCP will say, for instance, you are trying to ATM goes down today, okay? Whether ATM goes down, when you're able to write an application, what do you first do? To tell you that all employees are required to what? Shut down their system, okay? So once you shut down the system, you communicate with the IT, then IT does what? IT switches everybody to server 2. Everybody logs into what? Server 2. So there's a communication part within your BCP. All right. So thank you, Prince. So then the last step is now you need to now clearly identify various resources required for recovery and continued operation. So what are those various resources? Okay, so remember that in your BI already, you've already discovered that you have a downtime, a RP and RTO of 0 minutes, okay, which therefore means that what I'll be implementing is an outside, okay. It therefore means that from an outside, and I know that my server 1, which is supposed to be an HP server, will also be, I also have a replicate of server 2, which is an HP server, okay, for standardization was purpose, okay. That means I've identified that the resources that I need to ensure that I continue to operate is server 2, an HP server, okay. So that means IT would now what? Switch over everybody from server 1 HP to server 2 HP. All right, so I already identified what are those critical resources I need to work to ensure continued operation in the organization. Okay, so those things are written in plain and simple terms for everybody to actually what understand. All right. So now so let's go to the next part, which speaks to incident management. Okay. So we discussed testing, plan testing. Okay. We discussed plan testing. So from ISACA, so ISACA mentioned that when you are doing your plan testing, you need to ensure that you do 3 types of tests. You have the pre-test, you have the test. So that test is coming from your failover simulation and report testing. You need to do your pre-test, which means that you're just setting up, you are just ensuring that you are putting on necessary things in place. Okay, so if I want to do my failover testing, what I want to do is to first of all ensure that all the things that are supposed to participate in that failover testing they are on ground. Okay, so that's my criteria. I'm trying to set the ground. I'm trying to set the ball rolling. Okay, then my test now means the actual test. Now that all my things are on ground, I need to now do the actual test to ensure that everybody can actually switch over to server 2 and do whatever they want to do. And what does my post test mean? Post test means that according to ISACA, that a cleanup of group activities, okay, a cleanup of group activities. So everything we've done, okay, from that simulation, we can do what? We can do a cleanup of it. Okay, so once we do our documentation and we save it, we can what? Can do a cleanup of whatever we have done on the server too. Okay, right. So now let's go into incident management. Okay, so what is incident management? Incident management simply means that um, we know that there will be incidents. Okay, we know that incidents are going to occur, but then how do we manage it? So no matter what process you are put in place, we know there will be what there will be incidents. So how do we now manage our incidents? How do we ensure proper incident management and organization? Okay, so that will now take us to what we call the incident response plan. So incident management simply means how do you contain incidents? that you have within the organization. So that will now take us to incident response plan. So what is an incident response plan? So an incident response plan is a plan that details activities, all right, a document that is activities that an organization should follow when they are confronted with disaster. Okay, it also speaks to how those activities are being logged, all right, how those activities are being investigated, okay, and how those activities are being what remediated, all right. So when we speak to the response plan, it's just a document. So it speaks to how incidents are logged, how they are carried out, how they are logged, how they are investigated, and how they are what resolved. So I'm saying that even when you are put in place, you've done restoration testing, you've done failover simulation, everything is right, and you still have incidents. So how do you now document to ensure that such things do not actually occur again? Okay, so that's your plan. So your instance, so you now have something called an incident logbook. Okay, so incident logbook is that book that records all incident activity. So somebody will say, why, even if I are putting everything in place, why should I still be having incidents again? Okay, so you can have incidents where probably due to internal threats or internal factor, or your staff not following up with the required policy. Okay, so if your policy says that, if your BTP, your business continuity plan says that your staff, your employees should always conduct failover simulation every quarter, and then they miss a quarter, it therefore means that if any issue happens within that same quarter, then and you are able to switch over to server 2, it means that it now becomes an incident. Okay, so what will now happen? You now go to your incident logbook. Either you have a document or you have a application that logs that. So some organization will use you have this one, you have service now, you have Jira. Okay, you have GLP, you have different things that can help you to do your incident management. So you go to that logbook or the application and then you log what has actually happened. So for instance, what happened is that we were unable to switch over to server 2. That is the incident. Okay. What is the categorization? Is it I? Yes, you put I. Okay. Now, when was it reported? It was reported, let's say 2:30 p.m. Okay, 2:30 p.m. Sunday. You log that. Who reported that incident? Let's say probably the head of IT infrastructure was the one that reported that incident. Okay, you log that. Then what actions were taken to recover that process? So let's say the action that was taken was that we had to disconnect the server 2 and revert back to what server 1 after a while. Okay, then we now put incident length. So incident length is now that going forward, we would ensure that we do not miss any of the quarterly failover was simulation. All right, so that's what an incident response is. Okay, so another response is just saying that where you have issues, have you documented this one? Have you put in place procedures to ensure that whenever this is now occur again, you have enough weapons, okay? You have enough activity to combat that, okay? Now, what are escalation procedures? Escalation procedure means that, so remember that I said that when they say was logged 2:30 p.m., okay? So in your incident response plan, you have a part that says that if you are unable to resolve this incident within the next 30 minutes, okay, escalate to the incident response team. In your incident response plan, you have people called the incident response team, okay? So you escalate to the incident response team. They will now take it over from there and quickly ensure that that particular issue is remediated. All right, so yes, the escalation procedure will state what is the duration that your IT infrastructure team must report those incidents to the incident response team. Okay, that is your those are escalation procedure. Okay, and from your escalation team, how many minutes does it take them to actually work solve that particular issue? Okay, so that's the escalation procedure. So your communication plan is now that from when they have been escalated, how do you keep on check to continue to tell your customers, continue to tell the stakeholder, okay, not only your customers, your internal stakeholders as well, that we are working on this. This is where we are. This is what we are doing. How soon can we come back? And when are we coming back? Okay. So you need to properly keep on check your internal and external stakeholders to ensure that they are you are briefing them. Okay. Let them know what is actually going on. Okay. So your opinion cannot just go down today and then you just keep quiet. You need to ensure that you are communicating what you are doing currently and when you intend to come back to your customer, okay, and to your internal stakeholders as well. Okay. Then okay, root cause analysis. Okay. Root cause analysis is just saying so what actually caused it. So remember that when I was saying when I was talking about when I was talking about documenting your incident response logbook, we documented that it was due to the fact that a failover was not conducted in one of the portals that was not led to the incident. Okay, so that's how you actually identify your root cause what analysis. Okay, so you now document and say this is my actual what root cause analysis. All right. So that's what incident management is all about. It's just incident management is just taking to regardless of the control you put in place, okay, you can still have incidents, fit to probably internal threats or external threats. And then question is now that how have you been able to contain that incident through your incident response plan, escalation procedures, communication plan, and what root cause what analysis. Okay. Okay, so what's an auditor role in the business resilience? So another way to resilience means that you review your BCP and DRP. So for an auditor, what you need to do first is to check that the BCP and DRP you have in place. BCP means business continuity plan. DRP means your disaster recovery plan. You need to ensure that your BCP and DRP is in check. You need to ensure that all the critical processes in the organization have been captured in your BCP and DRP. So for instance, if a bank, for instance, wants to venture into insurance, okay, you need to now go back to your BCP and ensure that, oh, have we captured insurance as the critical or as the key business processes and IT dependencies for that insurance business in our DCP, okay, and DRP. Okay, so you need to ensure that all your critical processes are covered in your BCP and DRP. Secondly, what is your role as an auditor? You need to also validate what BIA documentation. So BIA means your business impact documentation. So your business, you need to validate that from your BI documentation, we said your RPO outlook should be documented. You need to have identified your critical assets, okay? And of course, you identify your critical asset one, your RTO must be documented, your RPO must be documented. Also, your financial and operational impact must also be documented. So you validate that you have all of this in place within your business impact analysis. Then another role you have as an IT auditor is to also review what backup report. So for every so we mentioned that there should be monitoring and loading, okay? So which speaks to how backup is being done in the organization. So you need to review what backup reports and the backup report that is shared between the organization, okay, and ensure that that the organization is actually carrying out backup as indicated. Okay, so ensure that the backup is complete, okay, and ensure that it is being carried out as at when due and in accordance with the organization what policy. Okay. Now, Another role you have as an IT auditor in business resilience is to review failover evidence. So, for instance, so I mentioned that you are supposed to carry out a disaster recovery testing and a failover simulation where you say, you tell your staff or your employees to switch over to Server 2. Okay. So, I mentioned that you need to document all of those activities. All right. So, all of those activities that have been documented as an IT auditor, you need to review it to be actually sure that the organization has carried out that failover testing, and to also be sure that all the business units that are using that application were carried along when doing the failover simulation. Because the implication, if you don't carry along all the staff, is that whenever the main failover, the main system now goes down. So if you are not even doing tests now, let's say the main issue now goes down, and then you've not been carrying along one of the stakeholders in the application, it means that they might not know what to do when such issue actually occur, or might not even know that that particular module they are using actually has issues if you've not been doing failover simulation. Okay, so there's a need to properly review failover. Okay. Then you need to assess RTO RPO alignment. So you see this RTO RPO, it's always that's been appearing everywhere. So that's why I said it's the backbone of business resilience. So let me say RTO RPO alignment. I'm just saying that for those applications that we are saying should be zero, okay, we need to align that they are really zero, because in as much as you can say we are using zero, does not mean anything. Zero means that we are optimal. Okay, we are bringing in the outside, we are bringing in the best disaster recovery solutions. Okay, you also need to understand cost. Okay, so you need to understand the part of effectiveness and efficiency in IT. So if your business is not that critical and you're now using an outside, you are using um an outside method, which means you have increased cost. Okay, it means that you are not efficiently and effectively optimizing your IT services. Okay, so, and again, if your business also is supposed to be zero downtime and you are using a warm site, okay, it therefore means that when your system goes down, you want to wait for 30 minutes, which you know that your business cannot afford that. All right, so maybe because you want to minimize cost, you want to go for a one site strategy, okay, which is not acceptable, and then you are putting your organization at a risk. So you need to properly assess the RPRTO to see that it actually aligns with what the business operation. Okay. So yeah, so let's look at common social exam tracks. Okay. So we say your BIA will always come before your disaster recovery strategy. Yes, of course. So you know that when we were discussing earlier, we said that it is from your business impact analysis that you will know the type of disaster recovery strategy that you want to put in place. Okay, either a hot site, a warm site, or your food site. It's when you have identified your critical assets, you know your RCRTU, you assess financial and operational impact. That's when you now know, okay, what type of disaster recovery strategies suits my business. Okay. Now, next one is another exam trap that normally happen around business is that you need to know that restoration testing provides most assurance. Okay, because so another question might say, which of these will provide you more assurance when you are testing, or provide you more assurance in a business resilience? Or to say, another question might say, for an organization that is trying to be business resilient, which of these would provide the best form of assurance? All right, which of these will provide the most accurate form of assurance? All right, so you have other options, then you have restoration testing. So you need to know that restoration testing provides the best form of assurance, or the most appropriate form of assurance whenever we talk about business resilience. And why? Because like I mentioned, if you don't properly do your testing, okay, and then you believe that because you have a backup strategy in place, if you don't test those strategies, okay, it therefore means that you are leaving your strategy to chance. So that means if anything happens, you are leaving it to chance. That means anything can go wrong as long as you are not doing the testing. Okay, so there's a need to do testing, there's a need to do failover simulation. All right, so that way you are assured that whenever there's a downtime, your backup disaster recovery is solid. Okay, another exam trap is senior management should always approve PCP. So you have questions to say which of these is the most appropriate to actually approve a PCP. So the senior management is always what the most appropriate, okay, not the head of IT, not the IT infrastructure, not the IT system admin. Senior management is best to approve what BCP because, like I mentioned, during communication, whenever you have a downtime, you need to always communicate to stakeholder, all right, to ensure that you are carried alongside. Okay, so senior management approves what BCP. All right, so another exam trap you normally have is regular testing. Okay, so regular testing is mandatory. So the question is, so you have people say, I'll say, should we conduct a regular testing every time because they will say it can impact business operations, okay? But they need to understand you need to understand the important value of regularly conducting a testing, okay? Then we said that it helps you to ensure that um your business, okay, is actually your business can actually recover when you have what downtime. So as long as you've done your testing, regular testing, then you are what you are good to good. Okay, so regular testing what um is mandatory for all businesses that want to ensure business resilience. Okay, all right. So let me ask this question. So if your organization says you should test your to do your testing for every quarter. All right. So every quarter, that means 4 times in a year. If your BCP says do a testing every quarter, and then you now do it every month, is that an exception for you as an IT auditor? Do you think that's an exception, or do you think so as an IT auditor? Let's put it in a context. So you're an IT auditor, you are told to review a BCP. All right. So put yourself as an IT auditor, you're an IT auditor. You are told to review a BCP. Okay. Your policy says that we should do testing. The IT should do testing. IT department should do testing every quarter. And by the time you review the report, you see that the testing is done every month. Okay. For you as an IT auditor reporting to the board, are you taking that as an exception, or is it not an exception? Do we have anybody that wants to help us out? Anybody wants to help us out? Or you want me to rephrase the question again? Just
Yes.
try. Can anybody
Repeat the
yeah,
question.
just try.
Repeat the question,
Repeat the
please.
question. Okay.
Please repeat it.
So yeah. So just try. You're not I don't nobody's marking you for wrong or right. So this is how you this is how you evaluate yourself when you are preparing for CISA exams, because you put yourself in that position and say, I am auditing, because ICAN puts you on the spot when you're writing the exam. They put you on the spot and say, as an IT auditor, you discover this and this. What happens? Do you think this is right or wrong? Okay, or what is the best thing? So put yourself in that position as an IT auditor. So I'm saying that, so now the question, as an IT auditor, you have a business continuity plan that says you should always test your backup strategy every quarter. Okay, that is 4 times in a year. But on getting to the IT unit, you discover that the testing is done every month. Okay, so instead of every quarter, it is done every month. That is 12 times in a year, as against 4 times as defined in the policy. Do you think that becomes an exception for you as an IT auditor, or you feel they are good to do? So what is your opinion to that?
For me, I
I,
say that testing monthly is okay. Quarterly seems to be a longer time. Monthly should be fine, I guess, in my opinion.
Okay, all right. Yeah, Prince, you were saying something, right? Yeah, hello, Prince, you were saying something.
okay, so no, Madam have said what I want to say. Thank you.
Okay, okay. So now, so for an organization that is for an organization that has a discipline and they say test your backup every quarter, and then as the IT unit, we now decide to test every month. Yes, every month is not bad. It's fine because the reason why we are saying we should do a frequent testing is because so that if any issue occurs, okay, so if you are waiting for 3 months and then what if any issue occurs between that 3 months, what then happens to the business, okay? But you also need to understand that we have done a business impact analysis, all right? We've done a business impact analysis that says that we have identified our critical business, okay? And we are based on that impact analysis, we have stated that based on that impact analysis, we have said that this is the minimum acceptable downtime that you can activate, that we can tolerate. And based on that, we are saying that this is the operational impact that this can have on our business. Okay, if based on the assessment, we have seen that that particular critical operation is an operation that we can decide to still allow for, let's say, 2 hours, or we can still allow for 8 hours. Okay, we can say for that instance, we can now develop our BCP for that particular process and say we can allow let's test this backup for every quarter. Okay, so let me take it again. So don't forget that we have done our business impact analysis on the start. Okay, so this is how ICAN actually evaluate their questions. That's how they actually evaluate students. So they evaluate it based on the test understanding based on ICAN concepts, and test understanding based if you understand if you understand the BCP procedures. Okay, before they now arrive at their question. So when they give you a question, you need to now evaluate criticality to say what are those parameters that inform this testing. Okay, so what are those parameters that inform our testing quarterly? So like I mentioned, we started from our BIA. From our BIA, we evaluated that the minimum downtime is, let's say, 8 hours. From 8 hours, we now evaluated that the best strategy we can put in place is maybe say a warm site or a cold site. Okay, based on that, we now say we can allow testing to be done quarterly. Okay, if our RPO and RTO is, let's say, no time, is 0 downtime, it means that we'll do outside and then we can be doing our testing every month. But because we have done our BIA and our BIA says quarterly, okay, our BIA says one side and then quarterly testing, then we should align with what the quarterly says. Okay. So because we've also assessed our operational impact, that monthly is not bad, but you need to understand that it might impact our operational services. Okay, we've also looked at all of this before we now arrive and say quarterly. Okay, so the business should stick to quarterly. Okay, monthly is not bad, but the quarterly should be stick to, especially for businesses that are non-critical. Okay, but for critical businesses, when they say monthly, they stick to monthly, so it does not affect the operational impact. Okay, so thank you, Prince, and thank you, Ugonna. So look back at what the BIA says. Look back at what your BIA says. Trace it to what your RPO and RPO says, and then what is the operational impact? Okay, then you now arrive at say BCP is saying that we should be doing this thing every quarter or every month. Okay, so follow what your BCP actually says. Okay, so which was why I said that your BCP needs to be updated every year. Okay, you're right. So that you need to be looking at what critical processes do we follow. So do you know that a process that is not critical this year can be critical next year? Okay, a risk that has not metamorphized can metamorphize next year. Okay, if something is medium this year, it can become high. Okay, maybe due to some strategies that we have in place. Okay, so a loan management service that we are probably using, maybe we are using it we are using maybe every 2 hours. Okay, maybe by the time we start having much customers booking for loan, we can start doing it every 5 minutes or every 10 minutes. Okay, so that it will now become what a critical process. Based on that, if we have been doing testing every quarter before, we'll now review it and say let's be doing our testing every month. Okay, so which is now part of what we said, and Auditor would also evaluate to ensure that RTO aligns with the business objectives. Okay, I hope that is done, that is clear. All right. So okay. All right, so system outage scenario, we discussed that where the system goes down. We said that where the system goes down, or where you are unable to access anything in your application, you show them a system fault before you call an IT. So you need to identify key risks, right? So you need to always think from the part of risk as an IT auditor. What risk can happen if we don't have a backup for the system? In fact, for every system you need to have a backup for it, because what happens when that primary one goes down? Okay, so what should an IT auditor request when you are carrying out the BCP? When you are carrying out the business resilience, your BCP is important, your BI is important, incident response is important, incident response log is important. You also have testing procedures, validate that testing procedures is carried out, the failover simulation, evidence documentation, right? So this will help you to properly assess that business resilience is viable within the organization. Okay, so we always say think risk first. Okay, we always say link controls to business impact. Okay, all right. So for every control you are putting in place, ensure that we are linking them to the business impact. Okay, so if we are saying that we want to put in a disaster recovery, this particular disaster recovery procedure, okay, which is a control. All right, so what business impact will we have? Is it a negative business impact or a positive business impact? Okay, so if I know I don't want to lose any money in my organization, I'll put in place what a second server so that my business will continue to drive revenue. Okay, that's the positive impact. Okay, then I apply exam logic to reward. So for Cisa, this exam logics, they are actually transferable to what? To reward scenarios. Okay, so because most of what you have in the Cisa manual is what you need when you get to reward. Okay, just like what we just mentioned now. Okay, you are reviewing a BCP and then you discover that they are reviewing their and you discover that they are testing they are doing their testing every quarter, and then the business said they should test it every quarter, and then they are doing it every month. Okay, so what then do you do? Okay, so in the real world scenario, you ensure that it's alongside with what the BI actually says. Okay, so you can see now that Cisa is a piece of cake that you can choose. Okay, once you understand the concept, okay, and then you understand how do I now link this concept to the exam scenario? Okay, first of all, understand the concept. What is this concept saying? Okay, so when I do something around business impact analysis, first of all, I need to digest what is the business impact analysis. Okay, then how does it now relate what to the question? All right. So I think that's the end of our class for today. I don't know. Do I have questions from anybody before from the are there questions? Any questions from anybody or comments from anybody before we call it a day? Hello, can anybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I can hear
Okay.
you.
My,
Are there questions?
yes, sir. My own is just to commend you. Thank you for the lecture. It's well clear and understanding. We really appreciate. Thank you.
All
And
right.
hello, and at the end of your name, I see after Cisa, I see ACA again. Please, what is the meaning of that ACA? Thank you.
Okay, so ACA is the Officer Child Accountant. So ACA just means Officer Child Accountant. So it just means I'm a child accountant. So that's what ACA means. From this Child Accountant of Nigeria. Okay. So so one thing I always tell people is that I get this question most time when people say, I have ACA, how do you basically I tell the so I always tell people that it doesn't matter your background. Okay. So IT audit is very interesting. Okay. It's something that once you develop your interest, you can find yourself navigating, and well, you know it, you find it as very, very interesting. Okay, so it doesn't matter your background, either you're coming from the financial part or you are not in the financial part, as long as you understand the concept. Okay, so once you understand what the concept is saying, and then you can interpret it, okay, then you can properly evaluate whatever systems you come across. So regardless of the background,
Hello?
it's so okay.
Hello?
Please, your hand is up. Mutiu.
Yes.
Okay,
Can I go ahead?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. Okay, good afternoon, and thank you very much for the class. I think it's okay, but I just want to confirm, if you want to write the exam, is there anything that we still need to do, maybe how to prepare and how to register, something that we need to do before we write the exam?
Okay. All right. So let me answer that. Rachel, are you on call? Can I go ahead to answer that? Rachel. Oh, she's on call. Hello, Rachel. Are you there? Okay. So, all right. So, what do you need to do aside this to sit for the exam registration? Okay. So when you register for the exam, you have a window of 12 months to write the exam. Okay. So let's say you register for the exam today, you have a window of the next 12 months to write the exam. So this is March, right? So you have the next year March to write the exam. Okay. So then what do you need to do to sit and write for the exam aside from this? So one thing I would say is that you need to prepare. Hard. Okay. So you have the system manual, okay, which helps you to go through the domain, okay, and then you have the lectures that are going on. So one thing I normally advise is that for each of the lectures going on, always follow through. So don't pile up your the system manual is a bit bulky. I'm sure some of us must have seen it. It's a bit bulky. So once you are having lectures like this, go through the what you have in class and then go through the system manual as well. All right. So that helps you to refresh your thinking. So don't wait till when you are done with all the lectures before you now go back to the system manual. By then, it might not be so fresh on your memory again. So once you are getting through the lecture, go back to the system manual and then read through so that you can be able to properly digest. Okay. So one thing I also say that when you are now done with the lecture, all right, I had to say, ensure you write the exam between the next at max 3 to 6 months, because that is when the exam is still there. That's when it's still very fresh with you. Okay. Ensure you write the exam within the next 3 to 6 months. Within the next 3 to 6 months, ensure you read the exam manual at least twice. Okay. Read the exam manual at least twice. First time you read, okay. Second time you read with understanding. They say, okay, oh, from the class, from what I've been taught in class, and from what I know, I think I now understand this concept. Okay. And where you are reading, where you have challenges, you can always get back to the tutors. I believe the admin will share you how to reach out to the tutors. Okay. So you can only get back to where you are when you probably have any concept to come across when you are reading, and then you feel you need some further explanation. The people can always help you to break down that. But you also have a part to play. You need to read at least, I advise 2 times, okay? You read the first time, then the second time you read with a clear understanding, okay? To help you digest those concepts. And then you also need to go with Q&A as well, all right? So you need to answer as many questions as possible. Very possible. Also, the Q&A, ensure you go over it 2 times, okay, before you sit for the exam, okay? So you go over the Q&A 2 times. So I've normally said that before you sit for the exam, ensure you are crossing at least 80%, 75 to 80%. That is what I believe, okay? Because the exam is 60%, okay? It's a score of 450 over 800. It will to close 60%, right? Let's do that with our 50%. So once you have 80%, all right, in your normal practical setting where you are trying the Q&A yourself, by the time you get to the exam, I believe that no matter what, you skate through the pass line. Okay, so in summary, you need to read through the manual. Summary, you need to first of all follow up with what is in the class. Okay, that's one. Secondly, you need to read through the manual at least 2 times. The Q&A 2 times. All right, and then the Q&A, ensure that you are filling at least 80%, list of 75% at least, so that by the time you get to the Cisa exam where you are faced with the real scenario questions, you are able to skate through. At least you know that you have your 60% guarantee when you read this exam. All right. So these are what you need to do on your part to ensure that you skate through the CISA exam. Okay. So it is not I would say it's also that because people are passing it. Okay. So you can also do it. All right. So which is why we are here to help you further break down those concepts to prepare you for the exam. All right. I hope I answered your question. All right. Yeah, Prince, your hand is up.
Please, is the if I wanted to go for the exam, as you said, please, I need to get a detailed information about it. Is the diet on, or and how can I go about it? The process of the registration, or so, and what is the time? Is it like ICAN? How many times they do it in a year? Is it twice or once? I still need the explanation. Thank you.
Okay, so ICAN is not like CISA. All right, so or CISA is not like ICAN. Let's put it that way. So if you register for ICAN, if you register for CISA today, rather, you can sit for the exam the next 48 hours. Okay, so CISA is open all year round. All right, so before we used to have the period of open, but now it's open all year round. So like I mentioned earlier, if you register for the exam today, you have the next 1 year to write the exam. Okay, so if I register for the exam in March, I can decide to write the exam in April. I can decide to write the exam in May, June, July, till the next 1 year when I feel I'm ready to sit for the exam. Okay, all right. So it's not like you can register for the exam today and then register for the exam today and then sit for it in the next 3, 6 or 12 months. So it depends on you. Anytime you want to register for the exam, you can always book on the CISA website, and you can always book on ICAN website and register for the exam. They don't have that. Anytime you are ready to write the exam, you write and you get your result. All right. I hope I answered the question. Thanks. Jason, you can see your hand up.
Yes, thank you very much, sir, for the wonderful session. Good afternoon, everyone. You made mention of the question and answer bank. We saw that the study material has been shared. I don't know how we can access the question bank, please.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I think that will also be shared with you.
Thank you very much, sir.
The question and answer is also from my Saka, so that would also be shared with you to enable you to practice.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And I believe that in the course of the class, we would also treat some of these questions and answer as well to whether I could see how to answer these questions during the exam scenarios.
So, any idea about how much the registration will cost?
For CISA exam,
Yes, sir.
okay, CISA exam is total is $760. The exam is, so you pay your registration fee of $185. Okay. And then you now register for the exam for $575. So that makes up $760. Okay. So that is the cost of CISA exam.
$750.
So $760.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Okay.
Yetunde, Yetunde, your hand is up. Yeah, hello, Yetunde. You are muted. Can you speak? All right. Adeyemi Dolapo Yetunde, your hand is up. You are muted. If you can hear me, you are muted. Okay. For I believe.
Hello, please,
Adeyemi,
I
are
have
you
a
speaking?
question.
Okay. Is that Ugona, right? Or is it Adeyemi?
Yes, Gonna.
Ugona. Okay. Okay. All right.
Okay, so please,
You can go
I
ahead.
want to ask. Okay, I want to ask when is the IOC start the normal teacher class, because I know this is just a free class this weekend. So I want to know when they tend to start the normal weekend classes, the one that will be paid, and what amount will be looking.
We're going to pass out that information to everyone soon. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, I can.
Yeah, that information regarding the schedule for lectures, the amount, and every other information you need will be passed on the group very soon. So for now, we just want everyone to just have a feel of how the class is going to be like.
All right.
Okay, please, sorry, what about the rest of us that are not in the group? Because I'm trying to join the group, it's showing me that the community is full. How can I get access to the group?
You can try again now. You can try again now. We fixed that yesterday, so you can try again now. And I think I would also need to drop our customer support line just in case the same thing occurs. You can just send them a message.
Okay, please do so. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, thank you. So, all right. I thought, are there any, do you still have questions or are we good? All right.
Hello, good afternoon, sir.
Okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon.
The question has been asked by the other lady. Thank you so much.
Oh, all right. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you very much for joining. Okay, I think you have the support line. You have the support line phone number on the chat now. You can pick it up from there from the chat. Right, thank you. Right, thank you everyone for joining today's class. Rachel, admin, are there other informations to pass across? I think we are done.
No, that's all. Thank you so much, Mr. Damilola, and thank you all for joining. More information about our sister class will be sent on the group, and just in case you're not there, I think I've dropped the support number, so just reach out and tell them you want to be added to the CISA waitlist group. So thank you all, and do have a lovely Sunday.
Thank you.